Okay, well, to an empty room. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of Helena Zoning Commission meeting on Tuesday, April 11th. It is now just about 6 o'clock, and so we'll go ahead and get started. I do want to reflect for the record that we have 4 zoning commissioners present, and that constitutes a quorum. For those of you not familiar with the zoning commission, we typically follow an agenda. On each item up for hearing, we will begin with a staff presentation. We will then invite commissioners to ask questions of staff. We will open for the public portion of the hearing, which includes a public comment opportunity. After that is finished, we will close public comment, have final considerations and questions, and then make a motion and a second. And just for the record as well, the zoning commission is an advisory board to the city commission. So this will, I believe this will go forward to the city commission after we are done tonight. So with that, looking at the agenda, we have our minutes from February 14th. Are there any amendments or edits to the minutes? Seeing none, hearing none, the minutes for February 14th are adopted. No amendments. Moving on down the agenda, we have regular items, and up first we have a public hearing to make recommendations on an ordinance to amend the text of this Helena City Code Title 11, known as the Helena Zoning Regulations, relative to both medical and recreational marijuana establishments and facilities, to include new land uses, to amend existing land uses, to amend whether those land uses are permitted, not permitted, or permitted through the conditional use permit process, to associate applicable zoning districts for those land uses, to amend the definitions of those land uses, and to set supplemental requirements for those land uses. So with that, we would turn it over to staff for a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Harbage. So I don't have a formal presentation, but before you in front of your chairs there on your desk, I've provided the changes in ordinance form that will be presented to City Commission. These are what we vetted through several work sessions. So this language, it has not changed. The change for this ordinance language, it's inserted into the amended table from last fall, as well as the amended definitions from last fall. The material that you had for tonight's meeting in your packet, that was based on the previous table and definitions. So we've plugged it into the latest amendments from last fall. I did want to make out or point out a couple corrections to this that I've just sitting here. I've noticed to be consistent alphabetically. We'll need to adjust where we stick this in the table and in the definitions. So the additions that are highlighted in green on the table, we'll need to insert those. It will go after industrial and manufacturing subheading, which is actually located on page 5 of your packet. So all the additions will go there. Actually, it will go, yes, after industrial and manufacturing, before overnight accommodations, to be consistent. And then the same change within the definitions. The new definitions for marijuana sales and operations will go before overnight accommodations and after industrial and manufacturing uses. So those are the only 2 changes from what you have before you this evening. I didn't know if you wanted me to get into any detail on what the changes are for the public. Essentially, the state through MCA has added a new category for recreational marijuana sales and facilities. And so to be consistent with MCA, the city needs to add that to our zoning district and zoning ordinance so that we can properly regulate those, because the state's going to issue licenses regardless of what we do, so that we can provide appropriate zoning categories and zoning districts for these uses, we have to add them to our zoning. And that's what we've done. You also see where we've struck in several places references to medical marijuana, both grow operations and dispensaries. They'll just be classified under the marijuana sales and operations. So where you see those uses are still allowed, but it just be categorized as just a general marijuana sales and operation. And then under supplementary, of course, we back to the changes. We've added several definitions again to be consistent with the MCA. These are generally consistent with what's in MCA, with canopy cultivation facility, dispensary, manufacturer testing labs, and transporter facilities. And those correlate with the appropriate zoning districts and the appropriate allowances for uses in those districts. And then at the very end in chapter 5, I believe is where we've put that in the supplementary section. We've added at the very end supplementary requirements and standards for general sales and operations. Struck out again any reference to medical marijuana dispensaries and grow operations, and replace that with general marijuana sales and operations with varying requirements for distance and location, size of the facility, cultivation facilities, again tied to the canopy allowances that are in MCA, some requirements for air discharge and filtration, and then we've captured some language to apply to existing facilities, as well as when there's a change in zoning districts to make sure that existing facilities can stay in operation regardless of what we do from a change standpoint. That's it in a nutshell. I wish I had a more formal presentation, but we've talked about these changes for quite a while. We did have a public outreach. As we mentioned in a previous work session, we've had one set of comments from a local establishment or retailer. We advised them on what the changes were, and they seemed fine with the course we were taking. They were a little concerned that we were outlawing recreational uses, and it was quite the opposite. We're allowing them in the city. So that's all I have. If there's any questions.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Are there any questions for staff? Yes.
I have a few, just one kind of point of kind of a request in terms of making this table more readable. For each of the subheadings, like industrial manufacturing or overnight accommodations, do we bold or underline or do something so that they stand out more?
Absolutely.
Because when you said right below industrial manufacturing, I was like, contractor yard, that's not alphabetical.
Yeah.
So just for ease of reading.
We'll do that.
And then my other question is kind of both the text on 11 and then going to some of the detail on 26 and 27. So do I understand correctly that there's a dispensary? There could be a separate cultivation facility, a separate manufacturing. I mean, are all 5 of those things that are separately permitted and operated? They're not, you can't have one thing that's all 5.
I think the only instance where the state will allow multiple operations within one building or operation is a cultivator and dispensary. But it has to be a canopy tier 1 in order to qualify for the combined facility.
And so that's why each of those categories has their own separation from
That's right.
whatever. And then the last question I had was with the grandfathering. Are there existing medical marijuana facilities that would be in violation of these new regulations, and if so, how many?
No, so all the existing facilities, I think we have 19 permitted in the city, separate locations. They will all continue to be able to operate as permitted by right uses or permitted as they currently are. There's no changes to zoning districts that would make them being grandfathered.
Okay, so none of them are like 300 feet from the school or
No, no,
less,
no, no.
okay,
Nope.
thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
I have a quick question on the definitions. Are those, I think you said this, but they are, just to confirm, in line with what is said in state code?
They are. And if, to be 100% honest, I'm not sure, but I believe they're verbatim out of MCA.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
I have a quick question.
go
It's
ahead.
just a clarification thing. If a marijuana dispensary, and I think this is the same for like bars and some other establishments, are there first and then a daycare or school moves in. How does that work?
First there has a right to locate. And then when the state comes in and licenses the daycare facility, I would assume that they would not permit it because it's within within that location. Yep,
So it goes both ways.
that's right.
Yeah, okay.
any other questions?
I guess I have a clarifying question about cultivation facilities. So the table says they are only permitted in CLM and MI. And then the definitions on page 27 sort of specify that cultivation facilities with canopies up to 1,000 square feet are permitted by right in CLM. But facilities with canopies greater than 1,000 square feet shall be located in MI. I'm wondering, because if I read the table, you'd think, there's no conditions on the canopy area for cultivation facilities, but the definitions say that, there are conditions. I'm wondering if we should.
And I think we've had that discussion before, and I think I meant to add that under the supplemental requirements. We do have C subsection, but we can make reference in the supplemental side,
Okay,
make some reference to the tier when it's not permitted in CLM.
It seems like that would be helpful.
okay. I think that's it.
I had one more question, and forgive me if I am not remembering our conversation last month accurately, but I think we talked about, did we want to do anything with like glazing and that for dispensaries? And I see that there is, so on page, whatever page it is. On page 28, it talks about cultivation operations must be located indoors. Marijuana plants may not be visible by normal unaided vision from the exterior. I thought we talked about something like that or along those lines with dispensaries as well. And I cannot remember what we decided.
Well, I can't either, but I think through our discussion and deliberation, we decided to leave it as is, knowing that the state has their own separate
That's
glazing requirements.
right. Okay,
So we were gonna
Yes.
just leave that
okay,
and let MCA take care of that.
that makes sense. Thank you for the reminder. And then I guess my last question, I'm just looking at page 26 to 27 under distance and location. Are those categories that we, the city of Helena, selected, or are those based on MCA?
So those are based on our preference.
Okay. And-
They're somewhat similar to what's in MCA, but the way we measure that is consistent with how the city measures casinos and taverns and whatnot.
I guess the only thing that jumps out at me right away is looking at businesses engaged in the sale of marijuana or marijuana products. We only list the distance from public or private schools and daycare facilities, but not, it seems like the distance from public building facility or particularly parks might also be useful for dispensaries. Is there a reason certain categories were set for cultivation or manufacture that were not included for dispensaries?
I think back to past discussions that we've had.
Does it have to do with the general scent disruption types elements of the actual cultivation piece that isn't present with the sale?
Well, that, I'm trying to think through the rationale why it's written from a distance standpoint.
Well, looking at the crossed out language,
Yeah, and I'm gonna make an assumption that we try to be consistent with the language that was there previously for dispensaries and grow operations.
That makes sense. to me.
Yeah.
I mean, we can,
Extend the grow 500-foot prohibition to these three categories of our zoning, public facility, and church, and some other. You said in the chapter about it.
Interesting. We can move on to discussion potentially. Are there any other questions for staff? I guess at this point. Okay. So the public portion of the hearing, April, is there anyone online who wishes to comment?
We have no members of the public online.
Is there anyone in person who wishes to comment? Let the record show there are no members of the public in person. We will close the public comment period and move on to final questions or considerations. And if there is nothing general, I would,
I guess
Ask
I'll
for
just
a
ask a question back to Chris. Are you mulling whether we should pull that over to the other three categories?
yeah, in deep contemplation over number 3 and 4. Especially number 3. Why we set that at a different distance.
Yeah. Is the dispensary a use of right under RU, R1, R2, R3? Question.
No, they'd be not permitted. So only one that's
Oh,
allowed,
not from it, okay.
not
yeah.
permitted. Mhm.
I guess to expand on my line of questioning, or just one question. The reason that one, particularly number 3, stands out to me is, I think the intent of the distance from schools and daycares is that those are places where kids are likely to congregate. And it strikes me that parks are also places where kids would
Mhm.
be likely to be. And then also thinking of public buildings owned by the city of Helena, so like the Civic Center or like Grand Street.
Right. I mean, to be consistent with the potential impact between the cultivation operation and the manufacturing operation. There's similar impacts, so why not make the distance similar as well?
I guess, so my question is, should 3 be included as an A2? So that it is also applied to businesses engaged in the sale. And not just to cultivation or manufacture.
I'm with you.
businesses.
I'm with you. So keep B3 as it is, but add the same language under A. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
And my understanding based on the grandfathering language for existing medical dispensaries and grow operations is that wouldn't, if they were located within that buffer zone, that would be okay. Just looking at the fact that previously we required that they were only a distance from a school, and so this would be a new requirement.
There could possibly be at least one in the downtown that may be impacted in relationship to the courthouse. That's right, but it may be far enough away that that's the only one I can think offhand that is close to a public building or park. Can't think of any that are close to a park.
And based on the language on page 28. In 4B, if there's a change in permitted zoning districts. They can continue to conduct their business.
That's right, unless they decide to make a change, they'll be able to
Right.
motor on just like they do today.
Yes,
Mhm.
But they, under the grandfather provisions, they couldn't expand. Right?
right.
That's correct.
I guess that seems reasonable to me.
Need to vote on that, or?
I think we. Yeah. Procedurally, how should we? Should we make a motion? To amend and then,
I think you can just do it in one fell swoop, just make a motion, if you're so inclined, just make a motion. To adopt it with that particular change, or in those other changes that I mentioned as well. Then what I'll do in the interim, if you successfully make a recommendation, I'll do some research and be prepared to answer that same question to city commission.
Okay.
And make sure we're not negatively impacting any existing business.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, we're not trying to hurt anybody.
Right.
It's currently in operation. But I'll have to do some research, make sure we're not going to impact anybody.
is there a motion? Who wants to volunteer?
I'll try it. I'll try part of it. Chris will need to explain, actually, before I make the motion, Chris, you just mentioned the other changes I discussed.
Yes, moving the uses in the table
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
okay,
to the appropriate alphabetical location within the table. Similarly with the definitions. Bolding the category, you can make that as a motion. It's just editorial type stuff and we can
Sure.
make those changes anyway, so.
okay, so I'll make a motion to adopt the draft ordinance as presented by staff this evening with the following changes. Number one, in the RAF, the category and subcategories under marijuana sales / operations will be moved to page 5 between industrial manufacturing and overnight accommodations. And the second amendment to the staff's proposed ordinance is that section, let's see, on page 26 and 27, section I let's see, section IA will be amended to add as a second paragraph, the identical paragraph to section IB3. Does that cover it?
So just one point, Vice Chair Wilson, it would be I1A and I1B.
Got it. Thank you for keeping track of all the sub numbers. So with that, I finish the motion.
Is there a second?
So I'll second it. Sorry, I had to catch up, but I'll second that.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion?
There aren't any shops near Constitution Park or anywhere over there. Performance Square.
Well, the one by on Broadway probably is within 500, is certainly within 500 feet of Performance Square.
Yeah, and there may be, now that I'm thinking of it, there may be one within 500 feet of Centennial Park. There on Last Chance and is it Vandalay? There's one there. Bandry.
And then is there one in the old livery building, which would be within 500 feet of Women's Park? Hills Park?
There's not a dispensary in the Livery Square building, no.
Oh, I
No.
thought there was.
Hmm.
Okay.
Old signs are left, right? That's all.
So that was never a dispensary, that was a head shop, so,
Oh.
yeah.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? I guess I would add, just for the record, that to confirm the discussion that we've been having, our intent is not that we are going to harm in any way existing businesses.
Mhm.
Our intent is that it seems that if we are trying to avoid having marijuana dispensaries in or near places where children will be congregating, it seems that we should be looking at this other category as well. And we do recognize that there are grandfathering provisions for existing businesses that may be located within that distance. However, we'd certainly want them to weigh in on whether this would harm their business.
I mean, I guess that goes to what I was gonna ask is, can we identify which ones might be impacted by this and give them notice of the commission of this?
We'll do
thing?
that. What we'll do a similar um, letter to the licensed facilities and let them know what the actual recommended language is and let them weigh in again and notify them of the city commission meeting. Yep.
There further discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I,
Aye.
Any opposed? No, the motion carries 4-0. And do we have a date for the commission meeting?
Do not. I've spent all my abilities just working through the last couple of weeks with a couple cases. Probably the earliest that we could get that to them would be their May the 9th meeting, I believe. But it'll be their first meeting in May.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll just add to my eye that, I don't know, I personally not super worried about adding this extra provision in here, but I could see the purpose of getting it in front of the city commission to discuss further. So.
Thanks. Okay. That wraps up our public hearings for the night. We have nothing on the agenda for old business or new business. Is there any public comment?
There is still no one online.
Okay. Member communications or proposals for our next agenda? No. Okay. And it looks like our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 9th.
I don't know offhand if there's
Okay,
anything for that meeting. If you're so inclined, we can definitely have items for that meeting and maybe just make it a work session day.
Okay.
I know I made promises to get some sign stuff to you. Just not the bandwidth in the office currently to do and pull all that together in that such a short time. But we'll make sure we get that ample information to you for the 9th
that sounds
regarding
great.
signs.
Perfect. And looks like that's it for our agenda. So having reached the end of the agenda, we are adjourned. Thanks all.
Thank you.